Welcome back. You're still watching the Afia Morning Show this bright and cool Thursday morning from the cool city of Enugu State, Nigeria. My name is Nathalie Uku, and as you know, Oji is here leading the charge, doing such a great job. Oji, how are you doing?
I'm great. Good morning.
Good morning. How was your evening? Okay, I assume it was an amusing evening then. It was amusing, right?
Well, it was.
Okay.
Though kind of restful.
Yeah.
No, eventually I just got to rest. I got it 7 hours.
All right, that's good. We also have Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwa joining us. He is the Executive Director of Lead Network Africa and one of our trusted analysts here at Afia TV. CEO, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Morning,
Thank
welcome.
you. Yeah, good morning.
It's been a long time. The last time you were here, our set was still blue, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, from day one. Thank you so much for your support, continuous support.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so let's start reviewing headlines this morning. We'll start from the Punch newspaper, and the top story here: 2027, police Inec move against early campaigns. PDP ADC accuse APC of violating rules. Call for penalties. IG vows to enforce laws. Tinubu Macron have lunch amid France political tension. EFCC quizzes ex-NNPC GMD Kyari over refinery contracts. Police arrest Obi of Lagos, foil installation. Straight to Daily Trust, EFCC quizzes Mele Kyari over $7.2 billion refinery fund. Gunmen kill 3 police officers, 5 soldiers in Kogi, Zamfara. Tinubu directs FEC committee to crash food prices. Federal government to arraign 2 captured Ansaru commanders today. 4 children, 8 others die in tanker accident. Early campaign threatens democracy, according to Inec. On The Guardian, federal government boasts 80% 2024 budget execution, cites procurement hurdles for 2025. Inec legitimizes ADC leadership, raises alarm over premature campaigns. Grid collapse may worsen as Gencos lose 66.26 billion naira, 1.866 megawatts to load rejection. Tinubu orders FEC committee to crash food prices. Nigeria records 15,000 suicide cases yearly. Obasanjo calls for lasting partnerships as IATF closes with $48.3 billion deals. On this day, ADC celebrates as INEC confirms David Mark, a national chairman, Aregbesola secretary. After another great failure, NLC demands audit of power sector infrastructure. Enugu wins 100 million naira Model Green State Award as Oluremi Tinubu unveils nationwide renewed hope initiative Green Nigeria Challenge. Says state is clean. Mrs. Mba will keep pushing. On Daily Global, grid collapse. Nigerians pay for darkness while cabals loot. NLC blasts federal government. Tinubu Macron hold private lunch meeting in Paris. ASUNAP congratulates President Ali on re-election. Federalism law leadership, Ardo maps Nigeria's future. COAS inaugurates multiple infrastructural projects in Army Cantonment, Makurdi. And lastly here, Ika politics and ABS Palace as de facto leader.
Starting from Platform Times. FG sets December deadline to end criminalization of suicide attempts. Minister says punitive laws fuel stigma, worsen suffering. Bill to amend Mental Health Act heads to FEC. Nigeria ranks 4th globally in attacks on school children, says UN. South African court jails Nigerian woman for sex trafficking. Ex-NNPCL boss Kyari squeezed by EFCC over 661 million naira fraud allegation. Lagos commuters stranded for hours as BRT buses failed to show. NULGE tax Tinubu on Supreme Court ruling, demands end of LG funds seizure. And gunmen abduct worshipper inside Oyo Mosque during night's prayers. Princes at war over jailed monarch's throne. INEC helpless as politicians flout electoral law with premature campaigns. And lastly, on the Platform Times, NFF disowned statement blaming Super Eagles players after South Africa draw. Moving over to Amebo newspaper. Again, national grid collapses. Megawatts generated dropped from 2,917.83 megawatts to 1.5 megawatts. And Inec recognizes David Mark-led ADC leadership. Court jails 21 internet fraudsters in Ibadan. Inec lacks legal power to sanction politicians for early campaign, says Mahmoud. Israeli strike on Hamas in Qatar undermines peace efforts, says Trump. Abia Police Commissioner disbands tactical units over unprofessional conduct. Lastly, on Amibo newspapers, stand against government financial recklessness. Peter Obi to accountants. Moving over to The Nation, EFCC quizzes Kyrie over spending on refineries orders. Ex-GCEO, I have nothing to hide. Dangote Cement pays 3.3 trillion naira dividends in 15 years. Owo, terror attack suspects trail begins October 19. Judge rejects bail request. First Lady gives 100 million naira award to Enugu as Green Nigeria champion. I will break second-term jinx in Ekiti, Oyebanji declares. And moving over to Vanguard, 2027 micro-zoning stirs tension in PDP. Opposition's protests brighten as Inec recognizes David Mark-led ADC. Jonathan Kwankwaso deepen negotiations. Blackout. Businesses suffer as national grid collapses again. FG not introducing new tax, says Oyedele. NCAA orders airlines to blacklist unruly passengers. Netanyahu must be brought to justice. Qatari Prime Minister vows. 2024 budget 80% implemented, says Edun. EFCC grills ex-NNPCL boss Kyrie over $7.2 billion refinery fund. Senate must allow Natasha back, says ADC ex-Kaduna AG Jacobs. Enugu wins 100 million naira Model Green State Award as First Lady Oluremi Tinubu declares states the cleanest. And moving over to the last one right here, Nigerian Tribune. ADC, INEC finally recognizes Mark Aregbasola orders as party executives. Party to Senate Natasha's suspension has lapsed. Further obstruction, abusive. 2027, INEC tells politicians to stop early campaigns. Says aspirants' action violates Electoral Act, seeks amendment to reinforce or enforce sanctions. Again, national grid collapses. NISO begins probe. Dangote Cement pays over 3.3 trillion naira in dividends to shareholders in 15 years. Aviation, NAMA raises alarm over threats of climate change. NIMET begs for increased support. In health, energy drinks may rise suicide risks. This one is from study. Reps blame delay in 2025 budget implementation on procurement process. Uncertain over presentation of 2026 budget estimates as 2024 budget implementation stands at 80% despite extension till December 25, says Edun. And lastly, NULGE seeks Tinubu's intervention over Osun local government allocation seizure. Calls on FCT Minister COAS to investigate demolition of National Secretariat.
All right. Thank you, Oji, for those headlines. So where do we begin this morning, Oji?
Okay, let's start with the tension. Let's start with the tension in the PDP, right? And the issue now too is micro-zoning. Yes, they've zoned the party ticket to the south. Now, the question is it going to the south or coming to the southeast eventually? So, Mr. Ephraim, can you help us break down this brouhaha in the PDP? The issue of the yesteryears was that, instead of zoning the party ticket to the south, they gave it to Atiku Abubakar, right? And that's how the quagmire, the problem between Wike and Atiku emanated, right? That's the genesis, by the way. But finally, come 2027 election, we know that any candidate that is going to be flagged off on the party ticket right there on PDP is going to come from the south. Now, the problem is Is it South-South or South-East? Because Goodluck Jonathan is one candidate everybody's looking at from the North, knowing that, yes, he can't do two-term, right? And Peter Obi said that, yes, I can only stay there for one term to give space to the Northerners to, take over after the next dispensation, right? So can you just help us solve this issue now? South-South or South-East?
Well, what is reasonably expected is that PDP will give the ticket to Southeast, because rotation is equity. You cannot just use the word maybe South. South doesn't really cover all of, in detail, all of the uniqueness represented in the region. We call them geopolitical zones, right? So that means that when you come in the Southeast, you have, largely the Igbos there. And the question is, under the platform of PDP, have they had that opportunity, the shot at the presidency, right? We're like, at least give them that chance, to be on the ballot for the primaries. Whether the person wins is entirely a different issue, but for the party to recognize that this zone actually matters. We know that Obasanjo, has gone there like under the platform of, PDP, right?
Yeah.
The same also should go for every other region. We've had like Yaradua and then South for Jonathan, right? And then Atiku over the time has also found himself running with an Obi, who is from the north. So now it should go to the Southeast.
All right, so let's still in line of politics. Let's look at this day. ADC celebrates as Inec confirms David Mark, National Chairman, Arabesala, Secretary. How do you feel about this entire idea of the ADC? Is it the party to beat in 2027?
Well, I would want to look at ADC from two ways. First and foremost is an unholy alliance. Like when I say unholy alliance, what I would say is when you have people who, in some regards, do not have similarity of ideologies, right, come together just because they must have to win, then certainly, if you look at it, it's something that with time, you see like the party begin to break up, because when you look at maybe like someone like an Atiku, Obi, El-Rufai, right, who over the time, they have had divergent views about the nation polity and the way to go about things. Yes, we know that there was a time Obi and Atiku were together, but we also know how they went apart, because of these two candidates do their things differently, and they had irreconcilable differences, and now you have all of these major players saying, you know what, I'm not gonna play the second fiddle. So when you are saying we want to coalesce, to come together to win, and even right from us, you're already warning that you can't deputize anyone, then it's something that just a matter of time. It's going to be like a challenge, because if you have like some others that want to win and they think perhaps they can bring in their dollars to the primaries, maybe someone like an Obi is not ready to do so, what's really going to be the next step for him when the imminent happens? Secondly is that, why I see it as a good model at the moment is that practically with the way the nation is structured, you really need all of the key stakeholders, the power brokers. You need to incentivize them by having a platform that would be able, just like the APC, right? To engage all the relevant stakeholders, bring them on table, and see how you can negotiate for within across regions.
All right, let's go on a quick commercial break now. When we come back, we'll take a look at more headlines. Of course, stay tuned. The Morning Show returns in just seconds. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're still watching the Afia Morning Show. We're still assessing headlines this Thursday morning with CEO Lead Network Africa, Mr. Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwa. So let's head into another sector, energy. Amebo newspaper's boldest headline, again, national grid collapses. How tired are you, or not, of hearing of this issue of grid collapse in Nigeria? Still cutting across to another daily global, Nigerians pay for darkness while cabals loot. This is the Labour Congress blasting the federal government. What's your take?
Yeah, and honestly, I think state actors seems to be comfortable with the fact that Nigerians are getting used to that news. In psychology, there's what we call shock and overwhelm. So, at the first instance, we get embarrassed. Over time, it's embarrassed. And then over time, you are like, come on, why will these guys continue doing this? If there has been that acclaimed, more strategic investment, partnerships, with some global platforms that have been able to set other nations on the path of uninterrupted electricity. And with all those acclaimed, statements, you have like a situation where the nation, rather than moving from 4,000 megawatts upward, keeps declining, 2,000 something, 1,000 something, and then. So it's almost like a news that many Nigerians know. Things like, for the newspapers we're reviewing this morning, perhaps just only one use this as the major headline, right? Because we're already getting used to it. So it's more like, let's give other news but it's actually supposed to be something that really calls for, really be the major headline, because it's embarrassing that one of the things we need to be a stable nation, very productive, is one that it's a problem, problematic. And the very, very annoying thing about it is even the rising cost of electricity under the current administration. People have to now pay more. We're now more conscious of, what they spend, and whether you're running a business or even for, personally at the home level. So you are paying for more, and the government doesn't seem to be making more investment into very critical infrastructure like electricity.
Will we ever in this country get this right when it comes to energy, right? Because energy is one of the drivers of economy, right? Because apparently when there is power, it's seamless. When you're running on alternative energy, let me say like generator, you're spending more. In the business you're doing, you're spending more, and you're not making a whole lot. Are we ever going to get right here, or this is somebody's pipeline of milking the nation, making more money for his personality, his person?
Certainly, part of what we saw in the news, the cabals, right? Every of such heavy platforms, right, or sectors in Nigeria has always served as a conduit to milk the nation, because every time it has to come on the budget, or we are going to invest a certain amount of money into electricity. So by the time you get rid of this phase, then that means the only thing we expect to see on the budget now is maintenance, and not necessarily you want to build some new things. It may not stop too soon, but of course, the cabals do not own the country. When we have the right leaders, we also have citizens that are more aware and can demand, for things to change, then we can actually get there as a nation.
All right, let's head away from there to the nation. EFCC quizzes Kyari over spending on refineries. Now, the former GCO says, I have nothing to hide. This is still about energy on the nation. What's your take on, Kyari's take on this investigation?
Well, I would say that he's already used to the Nigerian system, where we have EFCC in their usual way, give the impression that something is going to happen, right? Because reasonably, for someone that has occupied a position like that, before EFCC can go after him, I'm sure they must have done the needful, do some level of due diligence, because the very fact of even announcing that someone is being quizzed, it's a sort of an indictment.
How
right?
do you think he's being quizzed?
Yes. When he's being interrogated at the headquarters, asking him some necessary questions, we see this, we observe this, and the interesting thing is that there's a tune put to it. Amount of money about, is it 2 point, is it?
Billion, yes, it's billions of naira.
Over 2 billion, right? So just naming such an amount of money to his name already in the Nigeria public courts, right? The debate has already begun, focusing on him. So he can guess as much as an average Nigerian that the chances of anything coming out of that case, just like several other cases, is very slim.
That takes us to what is central in Enugu now, and that concerns the Sujimoto saga. Sujimoto CEO, rather, was just declared wanted by the anti-graft agency. And you said something, EFCC would act like they want to do something. So I want to tie it home, bring it back to this. How do you feel about the actions of the anti-graft agency so far? Do you see it yielding any results?
So in some cases, especially when there are some interest, right? We've seen them get results. In some other cases, like for instance, if like now the state government is determined to recover its money, and Sujimoto gets some backup from federal actors, it's going to foil the case. At the end of the day, maybe the governor could be called to subpoena. That is one of them, right? And that's what we literally see, where we have individuals interfering into institutional processes, right? Because in Nigeria, it's not all about, institution being strengthened by the power of the Constitution, by the power of the rule of law, but individuals themselves are actually the institutions, those strong individuals who could just like call the bluff and say, you know what, police, stop this investigation, right? Free him and let him loose. Go and say no more. That's literally the way it works, when you identify with certain blocks. But I do hope, that the monies of the Enugu and taxpayers will be recovered.
How can that be averted? I mean, that seems like such a disappointing thing to even consider or could happen. How can such a situation be averted? Because the state government has assured in the Enugu that the money would be returned. How can that
Well, one of the ways is to seek a political solution to it, because as much as possible, political dynamics is what interferes most of the time to the smooth administration, right? When you talk about our criminal justice system, right? What you just literally have is like political interference. It's like, let me make this case of the barrister that has been detained, who won an election, House of Assembly, right?
Enugu South Urban Constituency by-election.
Who's been languishing in the prison. And just on the day that the judge was meant to give a judgment, he recused himself. That was unprofessional, unethical, least expected. But of course, I don't need to be a prophet to know that some political interferences has, stopped the process, which should have gotten like a deserving judgment. I don't know what it would have been. I mean, I'm not a judge, but whatever be the case, let's have the judgment. That's what is reasonably expected. If you have to recuse yourself, do that before the D-Day, right? So, case of, the files were lost, all those things. When you begin to see those things, then that political actors has begun to, toil with institutional processes. And the same thing also could play out. I mean, we've seen that over time where, certain cases like political actors are interested, no matter who is involved. They say they are looking for the person. All of a sudden, one of the embarrassing side I've seen as a Nigerian is where, the former Kogi state governor who was being looked for years, and when he was appearing with come and see steez, right? Wearing white and being gathered, and I'm like, come on, right? The moment we actually appreciate that, if you've been declared a criminal, it doesn't matter whether you stole billions or whether you stole a phone at Alberte. A criminal is a criminal.
Since we're still in the courtroom, talking about legislature and judiciary, right? Let's get to Vanguard. Senate must allow Natasha back, says ADC ex-Cardinal AG Jacobs. Now, instead of her to apologize, as stated in the open apology, she took it upon herself to serve her suspension, which has elapsed already. But coming back to the Senate, she's not allowed to because there's a pending litigation, as they stated. My question is, checking, balancing actually Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's situation at this point in time, the brouhaha, even with the Senate president, is this now more personal to teach her a lesson than what it is that she did?
I think at this point, it wouldn't be all about lessons if she hadn't learned it for 6 months. I mean, keeping somebody away who is legitimately elected, just like yourself. In fact, what's his name? Ababio, the Senate president, was not legitimately elected. This is me saying, right? And the reason is that he wasn't even, I mean, he didn't even get a form for primaries, right? You know, just all of a sudden we saw the court declare that he's qualified. You know, somebody, when the process was already long past and we saw the name slotted, he now emerged as Senate President, and somebody who is elected by his own constituency, by our constituency, to represent them, you suspend the person, and after the 6 months, you still think you want to teach the person. Is this a family business? Is it like a case of like a chauvinist male husband, right? Who have toxic masculinity, trying to teach the wife a lesson. I mean, something like this should not be seen.
Senator Gospel Ababio, possess all those attributes.
Yeah, honestly, because we've seen him like make some kind of comments against women. And the simple truth is that I think this should actually be like an advice to all those shouting women, supporting women. This is the time we want to see that. Because I mean, this shouldn't be happening in a decent nation, right? If you say 6 months and stuff like, don't come up again with all of those technicalities. Don't forget that you are a senator. It's just only positionally, right? In terms of position that you are higher than her. A senator is a senator. 109 senators, nobody is represented. You are not going to come from Akwa Ibom and also represent the good people of Kogi. You are there for your constituency, and it's just because you are there that you can also be, elected to that position of, the Senate President. So we shouldn't entertain this, you understand, where he can even become the court on his own self and the press, deciding everything, and he stands that way.
But what's her fate at this point in time?
In all honesty, if I tell you, if Ababio is allowed this way, that woman can be kept away from the National Assembly.
Well, what happens to the constituents?
Now, the constituents, you know, when it comes to this, politics play. And I will say at this level, it's not what even the constituents can actually do, except maybe like follow litigation process. But this is highly political. She comes from a platform. She comes from a political party, right?
Yeah.
We want to see more from PDP. By insisting. Yes, we've had them release a political statement and stuff. But beyond that, we want them to go beyond that, to challenge this. And most importantly, those guys, PDP senators that are there, keeping quiet. Why are you keeping quiet? Is Ababio going to remove you from being a senator?
So it points to Oji asked a very important question and a very good point as well. What happens to our constituents? Now, obviously, nothing is happening with them because she's not there. Essentially, what are her chances? Because you've said a very tragic end to this. You've reeled it out that if Ababio is allowed to have his way, she may never come back, right?
That's right.
So what are her chances at this point in time? What chances does Senator Natasha have? And, how can this bridge finally be crossed?
So, for me, her chances will not like her identify. It doesn't lie with the constituents. At this level, it has passed that level like we saw. When she went to, the constituents, they gathered and were singing and dancing.
It's beyond that now.
And maybe going to United Nations, right? It has passed that because, United Nations does not interfere into domestic affairs, right?
Yeah.
And, we didn't see IPU help her. Maybe the inter-parliamentary union, right? That she visited, and every Nigeria was like, this woman has taken it to this level.
But does that mean they're not working behind the scenes?
But beyond that, the thing I see that is going to bring this is when we have those senators that are there, the likes of Osi Tango and all those PDP guys. This is a member of your own political. You have nothing to lose to stand for your own person. Go and meet Ababio and tell him, our colleague has completed the 6 months respectfully. Please, can you, allow her to continue with our role? Because if that is not happening, one of the things that we see, like we know that recently the NBA conference held in Enugu, part of what necessitated for that is, when it was meant to be in Port Harcourt, but in defiance to and not accepting what was going on in that particular state. But guess what? When Tinubu came up with that very strange idea of declaring a state of emergency, there was that initial, gra and stuff like that. But over time, we saw that settle in. We saw Sim Fubara humbled. We saw Wikeland control all of the local government, putting his own people and dancing.
But this is happening as a spectacle for Nigerians to behold, and nobody is doing anything about it. So he talks about the PDP members. They're going to appeal to Godswill Akpabio, who is in fact the leader of the
Senate. They should demand, not appeal.
Right? They should demand, that Senator returns and, fulfills her duties. But at the same time, Senator Godswill Akpabio is dealing with deeply personal allegations against his very own integrity. Someone is accusing him of sexual harassment. Could these people be treading with caution because they do not want to suffer a similar fate? Could they be trying to selfishly guard their own interests because they've seen how Senator Natasha has seemingly been dealt with at the Senate?
Certainly not. In fact, at this point, it has passed her fight. If there was any time we expected her to be very loud about the accusation, it would be this time she had 6 months to herself to strategize, plan, and even found that embarrass of emotions that, see, he's just trying to keep me away just to cover up things. And this particular phase, if she still comes up with that, it will be like old story if she returns there. Because I mean, it's not going to be deliberated in the National Assembly or maybe the House of Senate.
But then she would be a constant reminder of the dark side of the Senate. Well, is that what Akpabio is fleeing from?
Unfortunately, that may not happen typically with some of the norms, right, that are passively accepted now within political cycles. Right? And moreover, like if you had to ask me to, render maybe my opinion about those accusations, I would say it's baseless. If you are citing what happened several years ago, you were okay with it, and you understand, if ever have something like that happen, and all of a sudden, just because they are challenged, you are raising up, a foul play and stuff like that, it doesn't really add up. It's like a kind of a clear case of afterthoughts.
All right. Let's look at this headline quickly before we wrap up. The Punch, 2027 Police Inec move against early campaigns. Now, riders here, PDP, ADC accuse APC of violating rules, call for penalties. Federal government vows to enforce laws. So we're seeing this statement is directly targeted at APC that is being accused of starting campaigns for 2027 now. Have you seen any subtle campaigning going on? Do you believe that there's nothing happening as APC alleges?
And if you believe, why the desperation?
Well, I think it's really cause for concern, because at a point I was wondering, come on, we still have like close to 2 years, right? It just looked like the election was just, you understand, because every politician now is more interested in, consolidating his position, whether at the state level or at the national level, right? Reasonably expected, that is politics for you. But beyond that, they must act with restraint. And then also there is a difference between actually updating the citizens on your policies and also turning it into a campaign, a kind of stunts. The last time I visited Abuja, I began to see is this something 2027? I'm telling you clearly, right? 2027, not quite long ago, flagging up some kind of things and putting the picture of the president. I'm like, come on, why would the president say no? This is not the rule. Please take it down. Right?
He has come out to say no before. He doesn't want it. He doesn't like it.
You don't just say no. Once you call those boys to order, they are going to take it down. It's not just enough to make political statements and stuff like that. The moment we realize, just like we see APC and the president come and say that, as long as 2024 budget is concerned, they have, reached 80%, right? So you are assessing yourself. You are the student writing the exam. You also the teacher marking yourself, right? And sometimes when they say this, all of the Nigerian universities, all those professors there who don't understand their role in nation building will just take it and be quoting it and citing the reference. Rather than actually gathering data, interrogating those data, and ensuring that only the truth stands out.
All right.
Okay.
One more headline before we go. Of course, this is squeezed to the top of this day newspaper this day. Enugu wins 100 millionaire model Green State Award as Oluremi Tinubu unveils nationwide renewed hope initiative Green Nigeria Challenge. Now, the part that catches our attention here is that she says that Enugu is cleanest.
How does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel?
Okay, how it makes me feel? Well, great, yes. If I accept the result, then great, yes. But I think to a very great extent, the current administration is really doing a great deal. Yes, we know that, just before some kind of reshufflements were done, there was a time there was rising concern in some places of seeing some sites, some pleasant sites.
Soka, Soka towards the end.
Yes. even beyond that, even beyond Nsukka. But I think the current administration is doing everything, right? Keeping on toes to ensure that the state actually remains there.
But some people are still not happy with these developments. They don't want to pay the taxes that they say are weighing heavily on them.
Okay. So the thing there is that, like, I believe in something. Of course, taxes is the way government gets the money to run the system. But of course, taxation will have a human face, right? Yeah, because the first thing I would expect the governor to do is, with all due respect to the promise of, moving the economy from $4.4 billion to $30 billion, right? It shouldn't just be like to mop up the monies within the pockets of the citizens, but also part of the strategy will be, how do we create, right, more wealth so that people can, freely, like, pay taxes, right? Because the more, the merrier. If you have more money, attracting more investment into the state, empowering young persons to work, then that money you are looking for, right, in the few that have businesses, you can get more of it.
All right. Go ahead, Oji.
Is Enugu green enough? Is it green enough?
Yeah, to a very great extent. I mean, we'll say, like, ranging from the last administration to now, reviving of some of those parks, and now with a smart green school, which is really going to, like, reduce carbon emissions, even begin to, like, culture the young persons to have that mindset, right, of the green culture, sustainability culture. I think it's deserving.
Okay, nice. But before we go, I need to shout out to Nagoziem who then say the virus. I saw what you and your friends are doing. They're actually planting all around the Enugu states. That's a great feat.
That's
they took it upon themselves, their friends, their monies and all that.
Wow.
And it's great too that the government is keen into that, helping them out to water those grasses across Enugu state. Big shout out, big looking out, guys.
All right. Thank you, CEO, for joining the show today. In case you don't know who CEO is, Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwa. So that's the short form, CEO. All right. I mean, it's always great having you for your interesting analysis, really breaking things down for us. Now, speaking of green, at about just after 9, we'll have the Commissioner for Education, Enugu State, Professor Ndubueze Mba, walk us through developments with the Enugu Smart Green Schools. Perhaps he would answer how green the schools truly are. The morning show returns around region in just seconds. Stay tuned.